Hey, and welcome to the DIY Homebuyer podcast. My name is Nick, your host and the creator of the DIY Homebuyer Academy. And this show is all about home buying. So, we're going to hit on all things related to home buying within the real estate industry. Of course, my slant is that I want to help you become a DIY homebuyer. That is, I want you to be your own agent and not dependent upon a costly buyer's agent. And there's multiple reasons for this, which I'm sure we'll get into more and more as the show goes along. But if you do want to connect with me, I'll just highlight it now that all of my links are in the description below, and you can get a free guide that I put together. It's 5 strategies to save you $5,000 or more on your next home. Super helpful, useful guide, yours completely free. So do make sure to pick that up. But with no further ado, let's go ahead and dive in here to episode 1. And I wanted to begin by just talking about who I am and why I've created this DIY homebuyer program. I mean, by program, I mean the podcast, the course, the coaching, but really what I'm aiming to do is just create a cultural movement that pushes us towards self-represented buyers being the norm. I want to change the real estate industry. I want to change how we conceive of purchasing homes in the United States, and I want for you to be part of that. So, my background. I got into real estate about 5 years ago, first on the investment side. Had a good friend who, by the time he was 30 years old, already had 30 doors to his name. He was working as a real estate agent, but was really leveraging his knowledge and experience as a real estate agent to help him purchase investment properties. And long term, that was his wealth building and income generating vehicle, was investments in real estate. And I thought, that sounds really great. I want to do that too. And so I used him as my agent to buy my first fix and flip and to help me with some rental kind of stuff, rental properties, converting basements into Airbnbs, all kinds of fun things like that. And he was awesome. I still am great friends. But as I was looking at the closing statements, I'm seeing, oh my gosh, I'm paying this guy like 15 grand every time that I buy a property in buyer agency fees. And of course, it looks like that's coming from the seller as a seller concession, or the seller paying the agent. But the reality is, as the buyer, like, I'm the one bringing all the money to the table. And so that $15,000 commission that my agent was making, really, I'm paying for it in my mortgage with interest over the life of that loan. And me having the interest that I had in real estate, thinking about making a career change and also wanting to save money, I started thinking to myself, well, how can I just represent myself? And this was in 2019, 2020-ish. And it seemed like the only way that I could actually represent myself was to put in the 90 hours of coursework, pass the test, get my real estate license, and hang that with a brokerage. And so that's what I did. And once I got licensed, I thought the next best step for me would be to join up with a new home builder. It was a local builder that I went on to their sales team. And that was great because, one, they were a very reputable builder. It allowed me to really get to know the nuts and bolts of how you build a home, understand homes very, very well. It also put me in a unique position where instantly I had 30 plus listings and maintained that at all times. I always had something to sell, which is kind of unusual in real estate. It also created unique circumstances in which the majority of the buyers that I worked with were unrepresented buyers. Of course, my real estate contract listing agreement was with the seller, the builder, but my norm was working with buyers who did not have their own agent. And so that was kind of my introduction to agency. So I came in with the mindset of, one, I want to be an investor, and two, the experience that I had was working with predominantly unrepresented buyers. And the thing is that those transactions, by and large, went really, really smooth. And after a few years of working with a builder and when things slowed down, I had such a great network of clients and folks. And I was constantly getting calls about people wanting to sell their home with me or help family members or friends that they knew purchase homes. And so I decided to leave the builder and go out and start my own more traditional business as a real estate agent. And started doing that and had really great success. I mean, I love listing homes, especially. I love being able to market a home and make a big splash and do all the media things and stage it and get it sold real quick over asking. Like that, that's so fun for me. And I enjoy working with buyers as well. But because of my experience of working with the builder and with unrepresented buyers, there was always this thought in the back of my mind of like, huh, am I really adding as much value to this transaction as what I'm receiving in commission, which is often 15, 18, $20,000 or more for being the buyer's agent on the average purchase price was $700,000, $800,000 for the clients that I was working with. So making really, really good money working with these buyers. But also is just struggling with the fact that most of my clients were highly competent people. And it felt like sort of the main reason that they hired me as their buyer's agent was one, because this is just how real estate feels like it's always been done. Like if you want to buy a home, if you want to see homes, there's an assumption that you have to have a buyer's agent. So some of it was just like traditionally, this is the route that you go. The other part of it was that despite these clients being incredibly competent, they didn't feel like they had access to the information that they needed to make really informed decisions about such a massive purchase, nor did they have access to the contractual documents that they would need, the standardized forms for a purchase and sale agreement and different contingencies. And so there's some gatekeeping going on that they felt like they needed me as an agent to break through that barrier and get them everything that they needed to successfully purchase a home. But being inside of the real estate industry, I'm seeing that, well, a lot of that's not actually true. Like the online tools that we have available to us, like Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, those are powerful tools in terms of being able to set up searches and do property research and find relevant data. Really, you can run a very, very high quality comparative market analysis, even just using those publicly available tools. And so I was thinking, man, I could teach my clients just how to use those tools and set up searches that are, 90%, 95% as good as the searches that I set up within my MLS. And in terms of the contractual documents, I recognize that as a broker that also worked a lot of listings, if I had an unrepresented buyer come up to me and want me to help facilitate a transaction, it is in the service of my seller for me to be able to provide those standardized contracts and documents to the qualified buyer to be able to fill out. Now, to avoid dual agency, which is a buzzword that we can dive into more, but to avoid dual agency, I'd need to disclose to that buyer that, hey, I exclusively represent the seller. I can tell you all the material facts and answer questions about the property. I can provide you the things that you need for us to successfully close. I can answer questions at a high level about contractual documents, but I cannot give you any advice on how to structure your offer other than to say full price or more and as few contingencies as imaginably possible. I can only speak to the particulars of the deal in ways that are to the benefit of my seller. But I just realized that, hey, with those things in place, buyers really can get the information and the documentation that they need to successfully represent themselves. But most buyers don't know that. And why? Why don't they know that? And, not to throw around the conspiracy word, but there's a lot of money within the National Association of Realtors, and especially within the brokerages, a lot of money that realtors across the United States receive. And my sense is that these companies and professionals do not want the average home buyer to know that they could figure this process out by themselves. They're incentivized for you not to know these things and to continue with the status quo, to continue using agents just as you always have. And maybe it's just because I'm a millennial and anti establishment, anti authority, whatever it is, but that has just never sat well with me. I do not like that mentality of gatekeeping, of withholding information, and really, it's I don't like the mentality of making others artificially dependent upon me or upon a profession. So I, for the last few years, have been thinking about, okay, well, what can I do to teach home buyers? How can I help empower them to represent themselves? How can I show them to use the tools that are publicly available to them? How to talk with listing agents about the documents that they need to write a bona fide offer, the steps for financial preparation, the things to watch out for with contingencies, how to hire a home inspector, what to care about on an inspection report, and what to let go. All of the steps of the home buying process, it just felt like there needs to be a resource available to folks that helps you navigate this. Now, I'm not saying that self-representation is going to be for everyone, but I think it's for a whole lot more people than are currently doing it. And I don't want, for the reason that people choose not to self-represent, be because they lacked access to information to make that decision for themselves as to whether or not it was the right fit. So I got to work just thinking about, all right, how do I build a course or a coaching program that can be really helpful to people that are at least considering self-representation. And then, of course, in 2024, August 17th of 2024, all of the outcomes of the massive lawsuits against the National Association of Realtors went into effect. And that felt like, geez, this is a really opportune moment for me to launch a educational platform for self-representing buyers, because now, for the first time in 30 years, agents are having to be far more transparent. Buyers agents are having to have the conversations up front about compensation and where that compensation is coming from. And probably for the first time, buyers are thinking really critically about, is it worth it to have an agent represent me for $15,000 to $20,000? That's a lot of money. Is there an alternative? And so, of course, that's why I'm creating this, to say, yeah, there is an alternative. You can save yourself that 15 to 20 grand if instead you put in the time to learn about what goes into a real estate transaction and how to successfully represent yourself. So that's really the genesis of where the DIY Homebuyer Academy, the course, the coaching that I offer, where that comes from. And the goal behind then this podcast is to share the insights that I'm getting, experiences with clients, to answer questions about what's happening within the real estate industry, especially as there's so much adjustment that's happening as an outcome of the NAR lawsuits, and hopefully just provide a lot of free but solid information and value to home buyers, no matter where you're at in the journey. So for this first episode, let me just go ahead and start with talking about what is self-representation, because I think that that's where people get kind of tripped up, real estate agents included. It's been remarkable to me as I've been making videos on short form videos on other platforms, which I won't name lest I get shadow banned. But other short form platforms, I've been creating these videos, and it's been funny to just see the misinformation coming from real estate agents who do not understand self-represented buyers. And so I want to try and clear a lot of that up. Self-representation is the most natural way that we buy things in the world. And nearly all of the purchases that you make day to day and within your life, those are self-represented purchases. When you walk into the grocery store, you autonomously, independently make the decisions about what goes into your cart and what you pay for. And you willingly decide what you're going to pay for it. To use a far more consequential decision, when you buy a car, you do so as a self-represented buyer. When you first start car shopping, you don't call up a buyer's agent that's going to help with the research and schedule test drives with the dealer and sit by your side to help with negotiations. Nobody does that. Instead, you do all of those things on your own. You start with doing the research. You go to the dealership. You test drive the car. You sit down with the salesperson. You request all the available information, the Carfax report, and you look at comps with them and you help to negotiate the ultimate price. And you review the legal documents that they provide to you that are standard for the purchase of a vehicle. You review those things, you sign them, you settle your financing, and you close the deal and drive away with your new car. And that's a very intuitive thing. Now, yeah, it can be stressful. Most people don't like purchasing a car, but the reality is that you do it, you figure it out. And I think that it's odd that in real estate, we don't typically bring that mindset to buying homes as home buyers, that we think that we need to have some other professional at our side. And so self-represented buyer approaches home buying the same way that you would with buying a car, that you're taking on the responsibilities that would otherwise be outsourced to an agent. You're the one who is going through the pre-approval process and getting your finances in order. You're the one that is researching areas and neighborhoods and looking up crime statistics and driving around, calling around, doing whatever you need to do to get local insights. You're also the one that's leveraging online platforms to set up your own real estate searches. And then once you've found properties that you like, you're the one that calls the seller or the seller's agent, the listing agent, to schedule tours. And as you're touring, you're the one who's looking out for material defects or asking good questions about the property. And then when you finally find one that you like, you're the one who gets the contractual documents from the seller or the listing agent, and you're the one that fills them out with your most competitive offer. And if that offer gets accepted, then you're the one who's responsible for maintaining the schedules and adhering to the obligations that you have in that contract, getting your earnest money in on time, scheduling and attending inspections, making requests after the inspections, following up with your lender and making sure that the appraised value comes back right. And if not, negotiating through any sort of appraisal discrepancies. You're the one that's responsible for making sure that everything goes through the closing process successfully. And there is additional responsibility and liability as a self-represented buyer, because if you miss any of those contractual deadlines, then you could potentially lose out on tens of thousands of dollars in your earnest money if the deal falls through. So I'm not trying to say that home buying is not a complicated process. I'm not trying to say that it's easy. It definitely carries a lot of weight with it. It's a lot of money. It is a big, big financial purchase, probably one of, if not the largest financial decision that you'll make in your life. So I do want people to take self-representation seriously, but I also want you to know that you can totally do it. The question really comes down to, yes, that's a lot of extra responsibility and organization to take on, but is it worth $15,000 to $20,000 to you to outsource that to somebody else that's going to hold your hand and do the communications for you and make sure that timelines and deadlines and things are met. That's a decision that you've got to make. But for a lot of folks, they're saying, no, like I would rather pay myself $20,000 than somebody else to keep me organized. I would rather do the learning myself than have to pay somebody else for their knowledge. And what I'm doing with the DIY Homebuyer Academy then is trying to carve out like a third option, or create the proverbial door C, right? Where it's self-representation, but with a coach, with a guide, with somebody that can send you those reminders, that can help look over forms. Now, I'm not filling them out for you. I'm not handling communications. There are some disclaimers about, hey, this is not traditional agency, and I'm not serving as your agent or your real estate lawyer. I'm simply a coach and a guide that's going to help you get through this process successfully and smoothly. But it's a really, really great option because it's way less expensive than having a traditional buyer's agent. And it empowers you so that not only do you save money on this next home that you buy, but you'll save money on every subsequent home that you buy as well. So obviously, I've got my biases, but I'm a big believer in real estate coaching for self-represented buyers, and that's what I offer. Now, why? Why would you be a self-represented buyer? And here, there are so many reasons. The obvious one, and I've mentioned it several times now, is the money savings. Like, most people would jump at the opportunity to save $15,000 to $20,000 on anything. That's not an insignificant sum of money. And so the savings alone makes it worth it for a lot of people to entertain the self-representation. And as I said just a moment ago, like that's $15,000 to $20,000 or more on every property that you purchase. So by the time that you've purchased 4 or 5 properties, I mean, you've saved enough for another down payment for an additional property, which is just awesome. Really, especially if you're wanting to do any sort of real estate investing or have a real estate portfolio, I think learning to self-represent is one of the best things that you can do for yourself financially. Just has a huge return on investment. Um, Sort of connected to that is, I think about real estate investing and investing in yourself. This is the other big reason why I love teaching people how to represent themselves, is because I'm a big fan of giving people independence. We live in a society that has made us so reliant on others and on professionals to do work for us, that I really wanted to create sort of a countercultural business model where I'm trying to work myself out of a job because I'm doing such a good job educating folks. It goes back to that like ancient Chinese Lao-Tzu proverb that if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but if you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And I love that philosophy and that approach to life. I want to teach people how to fish so that they can benefit for a lifetime. And I want for you as a home buyer to have the satisfaction of, wow, I took control of one of, if not the largest financial decision that I could make in my life. And I did it myself. I did it on my terms. I was the one that handled the negotiations. I was the one that took on the responsibility and met all the deadlines. You just have so much more control. You grow so much as a communicator and as a negotiator. You get so much confidence when you are the driving force behind such a big life decision. And so I want that for folks. I want for you to experience that kind of empowerment and confidence boost. And I just think that self-representation is one of those areas where you can really reclaim a lot of autonomy in your life that will bleed into so many other areas of life as well. And then the third and finally is just because I think that this model is where real estate is headed. And I want to be ahead of the curve, and I want to be working with those early adopters who see it as well. I think people are just realizing that buyer's agents have been kind of grossly overpaid for the service that they provide. And I say that, somewhat with my tail between my legs, because here I've been working for years and years as a buyer's agent. And I know that I've served my clients to the very, very absolute best of my ability. And I've had really wonderful experiences with them. But I believe in doing things that are aligned with my own character and personality and goals. And so when I think about, back to that quote of, how do you teach someone to fish so that they can eat for a lifetime? How do I add as much value to the world as possible? Well, if I can make real estate more frictionless to transact, less expensive to transact, if I can empower people, I just get far more satisfaction out of that. And there are real issues within the traditional buyer's agency model. Um, Two of those that I'll point out is just one, whenever you have a commission based model where the buyer's agent only gets paid if their buyer successfully purchases a home, it means that that buyer's agent is now incentivized towards pushing their client towards buying a home. No buyer's agent wants to work with a client for 6, 7 months, showing them multiple homes, having tons and tons of conversations, writing offers, and then to have the client ultimately decide, we're not actually going to buy a home. Because for the buyer's agent, that's just a giant waste of time, money, effort. And so the buyer's agent is yeah, they have very little power or control if you say that you're going to stop your home search. But it also means that that buyer's agent, just the human nature in them, is going to be pushing you towards a home, even if it's not exactly the perfect fit, because they need to make money. They need to have bread on their table at the end of the day. And downstream of that a bit is that traditionally buyer's agents get paid a percentage of the final sales price. And so you, as the buyer, you want as low of a sales price as possible. That's a reasonable thing to want. And good buyer's agents are going to help you get there. That's their obligation to you as a client, is to advocate on your behalf. But you have to also recognize that there's a human nature piece of this, that when they help you negotiate a purchase price down, they're also negotiating against their payday, because the more they reduce the purchase price, the less they make. And sure, if we're talking about $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, to your agent, that's probably a few $100s less that they're making. I don't think that most agents are going to blow up a deal over that, but the point is not to make a statement about the character of most buyer's agents. The point is to just say that the system itself is inherently flawed. You don't want to be in a position where you're working with someone whose compensation is not aligned with your own goals. You don't want to put somebody in a situation where, to negotiate for you, they're having to negotiate against themselves. That's just a bad, bad setup. And so again, that's where I just saw, okay, well, real estate coaching home buyers aligns the incentive structures. It creates much more of a transparency, of a predictability. You know what it is that you're getting. The outcomes of the coaching are not tied to how much of a home that you purchase. And the way that I succeed as your coach is by just helping you through the process, wherever that leads. Whether you end up buying a home, whether you decide that you're going to hold off for 6 months to 12 months, we can pick up where we left off. And it doesn't change. I have no incentive to push you towards something that is not in your very best interest. So big believer in this model for so many reasons. I do believe that self-representation is the future of home buying. I believe it's a better way to buy homes. Realtors hate me for it. I already gotten that on social media. And hey, that is what it is. And I think that also means that I'm onto something good here. Any good idea is going to be at least a little bit polarizing. And I think that the establishment realtors are feeling threatened. And I don't think that that's altogether a bad thing. I think that if an agent can prove their value, and if you decide to work with them because of the value that they provide, hey, that's great. But I don't think that you should work with an agent because you feel there's no other option for you. That's an issue within the industry and an issue that I'm looking to solve. So I am grateful that you are here, because you listening means that you're part of pushing the real estate industry forward. You're part of the future of better home buying. And so if you do want to learn more about how you can become a DIY home buyer, well, there's a few things you can do. One, be sure that you subscribe to the show, like it, give it some love, leave a comment with any questions that you want me to address in future episodes, and share the episode with a friend. This would be a wonderful way to just help this movement grow and help raise awareness. That's so much of what we're doing, is just trying to let people know that there is another way, a better way to buy homes, and you can be a part of helping get that message out. So please do so. It means the world to me, and it could help save people tens, $20,000 or more in their home purchase. So it's important to get this message out. The next thing that you can do if you want to connect with me directly, or you want to learn more about real estate home buyer coaching, again, the link in the description below, you're going to find the 5 strategies to save you $5,000 or more on your next home. That's a wonderful starting point. It is a free resource in exchange for your email, but I promise that I'm not ever going to spam you. I'm only going to send you things that are valuable and relevant to home buying and self-representation. So do get that guide. You'll then get communications from me. And of course, if you want to take next steps from there, there's going to be all kinds of links and opportunities to book a call or explore next steps together. Thank you for being here. Thanks for engaging in this episode. It's lovely to now have this online platform, and I just cannot wait to see what comes of all of this. So do let me know that you're out there. Hit me up with the comments below. I'll be back again very soon. Thank you, my friends.